Hey, algebra students, let's look at one of the trickiest formulas on the formula sheet. There's a reason why I put this in the advanced level practice. Now, good news, preface this, we have a whole lesson on using this formula later in this unit. But for now, I just wanted to introduce you to it. So you've got a chance if you encounter a problem like this. If you don't finish a unit, I know how you advanced students are. You always like to leave me before the unit is done. But let's take a look. It says quadratic equations in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 can be solved for x using the quadratic formula. Okay, and that formula is on the GED formula sheet. Note that the formula uses a plus minus sign. It's a little weird, a symbol you may not have seen before, which denotes that there are actually two solutions. Okay, plus minus is not some new math to do. They're just telling you there's one solution where you add and there's another one where you subtract. Okay, so one obtained through addition and the other through subtraction. So we are going to solve 2x squared plus 10x plus 8 equals 0. And we are going to do it, as they tell us here, using the quadratic formula. So first thing, let's hit up that formula sheet and go get that quadratic formula. Quadratic formula says x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over, nice long fraction bar, 2a. Basically, to solve this sucker, this quadratic equation, and I know it's a quadratic equation because its highest power on the x is a 2 or a square. But anyway, that'll all be covered in the lesson. For now, to find the x in this quadratic equation, all I need to do is plug in these values of a, b, and c. And you might say, well, what are a, b, and c? Now, I told you up at the top here, it said quadratic equations in the form ax squared. So a is the number with your x squared. What number is with my x squared? 2. So a in this case is 2. And then we can see plus bx. So b is the coefficient, the number with x. So what's b in our case? It's 10. And then c, well, c is the number that's all by itself. It's not with an x, it's not with an x squared, it's the constant. So in this case, it's 8. And these are all positive numbers. It says 2x squared plus 10x plus 8. And so I end up with these three positive numbers. And these are the values to plug into the quadratic equation. So let's do that. X is equal to the opposite or the negative of b, and b was 10, plus or minus the square root. Now, it actually doesn't matter in this example, but when we have b squared, I just highly recommend you put in the b using parentheses, because sometimes it does matter. Basically, when b is negative, it does matter, but it's just a good habit. When you plug into an exponential expression, so basically a mathematical statement with an exponent on it, use parentheses around the number you're plugging in, and then you won't have an error when it does matter. So b squared minus 4 times my a value is 2, times my c value is 8, and that whole thing is going to be over 2a, and our a is 2. Now, you can simplify this whole thing by hand if you want to. I didn't even leave myself enough room on the screen to do it, and that's because I'm going to do it in the calculator. But do remember what I shared with you about that plus minus sign. So we said this plus minus sign means that there's actually two answers. One when you add and one when you subtract. Okay, and we can only do one at a time in our calculator. There's no plus minus button in our calculator. So let's go ahead and do the first one. So see how it's this whole long, ugly fraction bar? You're going to want to make sure that you put the fraction in first, and then you can type negative 10. And I said we can only do one at a time. So I will do my plus first. I need a square root. Square roots are in green, and so I must hit the green second button to get that square root key. And going to open up my parentheses, 10, close parentheses, and square that 10 with the x squared button, minus, make sure you use a minus here, not a negative, 4 times 2 times 8, close parentheses, arrow down to the bottom, and that's over 2a, which in our case was 2. And I get that the first answer there is -1. But that's not the only answer. Remember, I said you get one from addition, one from subtraction. Now, I'm so lazy, guys. Look at this nifty trick. I'm going to go ahead and arrow up to the original expression I had, press enter to get them to retype it on my screen. And then I'm just going to arrow over to where my plus sign was and turn it into a minus. See how lazy I am? Arrow over it, hit minus instead, enter, and I can see that the second answer there then is -4. And you say, well, which one's the right answer? And they're both right answers. That's one of the tricky things about quadratics. They can have two answers. They quite frequently do. All right. Ooh, I'm kind of mean. Okay. Now, like I said, we're going to have a full lesson on this later in the unit. You can learn all about it. But for now, at least we got a shot, if it comes up, of pulling up that correct formula and using it in order to solve. All right. Happy learning.